Hello everyone and welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Jerusalem, Israel, and we continue with Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. This is chapter 16. This is called 3 by which the world stand. As always now, in our new tradition though, we will be adding Psalms 117. So everybody watching right now can say the Psalms in Hebrew and we will shake the heavens. So please repeat after me in Hebrew. Hallelu et Adonai, kol goyim, shabechuhu, kol ha'umim, ki gavar aleinu chasdo, chesed, ve'emet Adonai leolam, hallelujah. Thank you very much. I appreciate your participation. Okay, so let's get into it. The world rests upon 3 things. Al shlosha dvarim ha'olam omed. Upon the Torah, upon divine worship, and upon the service of loving kindness. Kind of loses all its, all its oomph in English, but it's al shlosha dvarim ha'olam omed, al Torah, ve'al avodah, ve'al gemilut chasadim. This is the chesed, loving kindness. Okay, so this is a famous Mishnah that can be found in Pirkei Avot, the Ethics of the Fathers, chapter 1, section 2, and these are the words of Shimon HaTzadik. As we taught a few weeks ago, Shimon HaTzadik was an extraordinary man, known for his piety and the love for his people. He's the one that welcomed Alexander the Great in there. He was the vision that Alexander saw every time he went out to battle. And that's why, again, when Alexander surrounded Jerusalem and Shimon HaTzadik came out, Alexander bowed down before him, and his people like, why are you bowing down before this Jew guy? And he says, that's the dude that I see every time I go into battle. He leads me into battle, and, so far I'm batting 1,000. Okay, so he was one of the last great leaders in Israel during the Second Temple period. Shimon the Righteous was one of the last of the men of the Great Assembly. He used to say, the world stands upon 3 things, the Torah, the temple service, and the practice of acts of piety or kindness. Now, depending on your translation, as you can see, it will say something different every time. But the Hebrew, which always remains the same, like I said, says the following, Shlosha dvarim ha'olam omed, al haTorah, we got that, al ha'avodah. Avodah literally means work. But what kind of work? Work for what? Like just going, your day job? No, it's work regarding the Torah. Ve'al gemilut chasadim. Okay, so the Torah teaches you how to do the mitzvot. Gemilut chasadim is towards others. Okay, this is why we're still here. Okay, because we have a mission. What we're going to do is understand what's what, because avodah, like we said, it means work. So what work? Okay, so let's break that down. Upon the Torah, whence do we know this? Because it is written in Jeremiah 33:25. So said the Lord, if not my covenant with the day and the night, that the statutes of heaven and earth I did not place. Ko amar Hashem im lo briti yomam v'layla chukot shamayim va'aretz lo samti. Chukot, right? Statutes. Chok, the law. And another text says in Joshua 1:8, we all know this book of the Torah shall not leave your mouth. You shall meditate it thereon day and night. V'agita bo yomam v'layla. In order, why are you just focusing and meditating and reading and speaking about it? In order that you should observe to do, right? It's not like, okay, yeah, no, you have to live it. Again, coming from, or this is especially for people who are going through the conversion process, it's not just enough to read the books. That's why every proper converting rabbi will tell you, you must move to a Jewish community in order to live it. What they are telling you is actually biblical. Okay, you have to live it. It's not just enough to read it and understand it. You can have a doctorate in Torah, but if you don't live it, then it ain't it. Okay. To do as is written, to do everything that is written in it, for then, look at this, for then you will succeed in all your ways and then you will prosper. In other words, do what I say and you'll be good. That's it. It's very simple. There are no shortcuts around this, okay? Anybody who did not go through this process, you're not only cheating yourself, but God sees all. Okay, so again, this is biblical. So we see day and night, heaven and earth, right? The connection in both the verses that we gave. What does the Torah have to do with these? These were all made through the Torah, and and they were here as witnesses and still stand that the Torah is truth. In Deuteronomy 32, shortly before Moses' passing, he invokes the heavens and the earth as witnesses for what he is imparting to the children of Israel. Listen, O heavens, and I will speak, and let the earth hear the words of my mouth. He calls the heavens and the earth right now to be witnesses for what he's about to impart. They were here before you, and they will be here after you. That's why they will be able to testify. And I know this because the Torah said so, which is the first thing by which the world is able to stand. Upon the work. What is avodah? Ala avodah. Where do we know this? For it is written in Proverbs 15:8. The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination of the Lord, but the prayer of the upright is his will. Utfilat yesharim retzono. So, what is the work? Avodah. This is prayer. That's the work. As we have also seen in Daniel 6:17. Then the king ordered, and they brought Daniel and cast him to the pit of lions. The king raised his voice and said to Daniel, what does he say? May your God, whom you serve regularly, save you. Okay? Elohaich dai ante. Falach le betedira. Tadira is Aramaic, but tadirut is frequently in modern day Hebrew. Hu yeshezvinach. Okay, save you. How was Daniel serving God all those years in Babylon, right? Because you're thinking work, okay, so it's physical work, maybe it's the temple work, but not everybody gets to do the temple work, right? This is for all of Israel. So how did Daniel serve God when there was no temple, when he was a captive in Babylon? If you read the book of Daniel, you will see that Daniel excelled in prayer. That's what his strength was. In fact, read chapter 9, and his preface to the prayer is absolutely amazing. Before he even asks for anything, he humbles himself. He recognizes the sin of Israel, puts himself within the sin of Israel, quoting from the Torah, and according to God's very own word, Daniel approaches him. He says, your word says that this and this and that, so this and this and that, and therefore this and this and that. How can God deny anybody when you come to him with his own word? Right? That's why it's there. He's doing exactly what was written in Joshua, exactly what was written in Jeremiah, exactly what Moses said to do. And you know the rest, okay? Before he was finished, the man/angel Gabriel came to him. And again, he came to him because the prayer was actually his work. As Birkei Rabbi Eliezer says, was there work in Babylon? Rather, there is prayer. We are called to pray at least 5 times a day. Now, I know that Muslims have 5 fixed times a day, and we have 3 fixed prayers. We have Shacharit, Mincha, and Aravit. However, we do have 2 more. Birkat HaMazon. What is Birkat HaMazon? When we eat bread, you have to wash your hands, make the blessing over the bread, and in the end, there's a whole prayer. Each section of the prayer was written by someone from the past. The first section was written by Moses. The second section was written by Joshua. Then you have, who do you have afterwards? Then you have David and Solomon. Then you have the sages of Beitar, and so on and so forth. And you see over the ages all the additions and how it's relevant. The prayer for David and Solomon were bless Jerusalem, because finally there was no Jerusalem before that. I mean, there was, but they didn't know that was the spot that the Lord chose, right? It's a beautiful thing. In any case, this is for bread. So this is another prayer. And what's the last prayer? The Shema before we go to sleep. It's a good 5 to 10 minutes. You're really getting in there. You add on all the Tehillim and everything, and the 42 names of God prayer, the Ana B'Koach, and so on. Okay, so those are the 5 minimal prayers a day. And again, you don't need a sitter. You don't need to necessarily read the Psalms in order to pray to God. Use your words. Right? Do that, but also use your words. That's really the power of this. It's difficult because, again, coming out of the whole, Christianity and Messianics, the prayer books have nothing to do with them, right? So they speak their own words. That's wonderful. Then, when you look in Judaism, if they want to pray, they'll just I'll open up and start saying Tehillim. Now, obviously, there is power in Tehillim like you wouldn't believe. But do both. it's very important to do both. So if Anarina and I are praying, we'll say Tehillim, we'll read Shir HaShirim, which is encompassing all the Torah. And then once we're done with already bringing God's word back to him, then we use our own words. And this is not something that I've actually seen in Judaism. People will not pray openly because then they'll think, oh, that's Christian. But guess what? It started with us. Everything that was there was taken from us and twisted. Okay, so let's get back to our roots and take what is ours. Okay, don't worry. Let them do whatever they want. This is not relevant. Okay. So this takes time. It takes focus and it takes concentration, especially the morning prayers, right? This takes effort, and you need to know what it is you're saying and the context of where it was taken from in the Torah. These are levels and levels and levels. We're going up all the sfirot. We're going up throughout the four worlds. We're bringing things up. We're taking things down. So everything was very well thought of, okay? So the prayers have not been written down before the days of Ezra. And from then on, our sages have implemented keywords, psalms, and requests from God. So everything is in there. So you cover your bases. Each prayer ends in a blessing to God, as each prayer coincides with God's promise in Torah. What we do when we pray is we essentially say to God, Amen, right? What is Amen? El Melech Ne'eman. El is God, Melech, King, Ne'eman is faithful. Whatever you said, I'm going to do. And not for any other reason that it's God who said it. You know what? Maybe I don't understand this, but this comes from God. I'm going to say it, and I'm very good with that. This does not or should not take away from us talking to God, though, in our own words. Like I said, I encourage everyone to do that, because those are your words at the end of the day. Okay? That's your words, that's your heart. Psalms, though, something very interesting about Tehillim that you should know. When you pray, prayer is not learning Torah. These are two different things. Psalms, however, when you read the Psalms, it counts as prayer and as learning Torah. Same thing. Very cool. Okay. Regarding acts of kindness, gmilut chasadim, for the groom. Talking about the groom. Where do we learn this? Who is the very first quintessential groom? We learn this from the Holy and Blessed be He who showed kindness to Adam and his helper. We learned this. God said to his angels, come and let us descend and give chesed to Adam and his helper. And so they did, right? We learned this a few weeks ago with the 10 canopies. The Holy One, blessed be He, said, I prefer to see acts of kindness rather than sacrifices and offerings that Israel are going to give me in the future upon the altar. As said in Hosea 6:6. Ki chesed chafatzti. Remember the word, chesed. Chefetz chafatzti, lachfotz, desired, velo zevach, vedat Elohim meolot. For I desired loving kindness, chesed, mercy, love, all that stuff. There's not like one good word that can properly translate chesed. I don't know how to explain it. It is loving kindness and grace and mercy, all these kind of put into one. And not sacrifices and knowledge of God more than burnt offerings. Okay, again, not sacrifices and knowledge of God before burnt offerings. In other words, burnt offerings is, okay, I sinned, here's my offering, now I'm cleansed. What does God truly desire? If you watched last week's teaching, you would understand exactly the meaning of this. For those who did, okay, good. For those who forgot, why'd you forget? Okay, so here's a quick reminder. Chesed, loving kindness, on the right is between man and his fellow, while blood sacrifices on the left are between man and God. God always, since the dawn of time, preferred that man be kind to one another over pleasing him, right? It's the story always is the father with the sons, and each son is trying to impress him. While that's really nice, but then if they treat each other terribly, doesn't matter what they give to the father, he sees his sons treating each other miserably, and it hurts him. He doesn't care what then they give to him, because it's not about this, it's about this. That's what brings nachat ruach to our Creator. Nachat ruach, not calm, happiness, joy. This is not to say that God does not want us to do exactly what he told us to do with the sacrifices. He told us that these are the sacrifices. You have to do this. Absolutely. But if it is done for self-serving purposes, just like all things, then they are absolutely meaningless. You need to have a good relationship with your fellow man and with God, like we discussed with Aaron and with Moses and Samuel taking both paths. Now, it's not to say that any of them were lacking, but they excelled in their own area. This is how it is in Judaism. There is not one man that is great at everything. That is impossible. Every person has their own thing. Together, we are complete. And so if there had to be a choice, there isn't, because both things are not only possible, but vital to find the pathway to good, right? But if there were, this one is what God is telling us to focus on, okay? Ben Adam lechavero. Again, you don't have to choose. There's no choice. They are both necessary. They are both available fully. But if you had to choose, God prefers this over that, right? May we never get to the point where we actually have to choose. Rabbi Yossi said, "From whom do we learn of the 7 days of banquet, the Sheva Brachot after the wedding? What 7 days of which banquet? These are the 7 days of chesed that is given to the bride and the groom. These 7 days, i.e., the Sheva Brachot, the 7 blessings, were also discussed in the past weeks. These 7 days have been celebrated since the ancient times, from before the Torah was even given. However, our sages say that it was Moses who rectified it within the law. In other words, all these things were there. He solidified it, though. As well as the 7 days of mourning, Shiva, and sitting, Shiva is Shiva, but also Lashevet, right? Anyway, and the 30 days of mourning until the tombstone is erected. You bury the body. There's the 7 days where you sit on the floor at home, and you know, with the torn clothes, you can't take a hot shower, you have to take a cold shower. You can't shave then for 30 days. And after 30 days, then you go back to the grave site and you put the tombstone over there with the name and everything. Okay, which we can see in Deuteronomy 34:8. And the sons of Israel wept for Moses in the plains of Moab for 30 days. They did the same thing for Aaron. We'll read that already also here and also in the next teaching. And the days of weeping over the mourning for Moses came to an end. And that's when they went, and that's how we know exactly the date that Moses passed, which was on his birthday, on Zayin Adar. Okay, so we got info. But where do we learn from the Torah that these 7 days of feasting was implemented? From our father Jacob, right? We know that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob lived according to the Torah before the Torah was even given. Why? Because they knew that this is the way of God. That's why God chose them, right? They didn't do this, the whole thing with works righteousness, right? They understand. God said, this is how God governs the universe. He's going to give it to the descendants of Jacob, the children of Israel. But if this is what God is going to give his chosen people, then why not do it? So they did. So from our father Jacob, for when our father Jacob married Leah, he made a banquet with rejoicing for 7 days, as it is said, fulfill the week of this one, Genesis 29:27. But the interesting thing is, if we actually read the text, we will notice that it wasn't Jacob himself who made the party for himself, because a chatan, a groom, should never make the party for himself for those 7 days. That's really, in today, what do? You have the wedding, right? Not everyone could come to the wedding, so the tradition is that anyone who could not make it to the wedding, or people who didn't necessarily make the cut, and that's okay, no hard feelings, right? Then they plan a party for the bride and groom in a different location every single day. One time it's by your house, one time it's in a restaurant, one time it's here, one time it's there. 6 places after that, because the wedding day is considered the first day. Okay, so who made the party for him? It was rather the father of the bride, Lavan, as all the people of the land came to give chesed to Jacob. And what we learn from this is that Jacob took this custom. One of the precepts, so you have 7 days of mourning and 7 days of celebration. You see this, right? One of the precepts that we say every morning regarding doing chesed is that of bringing joy to the bride and groom, as well as burying the dead. Why is it, right? We say these are the things that we get paid that we do in this world, but we get paid for them in the world to come. Why is this called chesed? Do we know what is actually chesed? Okay, chesed is kindness that you do, that you know you will not receive anything in return, and yet you do it anyway, right? How's the dead supposed to pay you back, right? That's amazing, right? The dead cannot pay you back, nor can the bride and groom. You're coming there to bring simcha, lesameach chatan v'kala. It's one of the blessings. Okay, so anyway, that's chesed. You get it. Is abundance of loving kindness. Here, here, here. More. So all the people of the place came to do chesed to Jacob, the chosen one, as we read in Genesis 29:22. So Lavan gathered all the people of the place, and he made a feast. God said to them, since you have shown chesed to my servant Jacob, I will repay you and give you your due in this world. Because all the people there, they were wicked, okay? Why do they get their reward in this world? What does the text say? That there should be no reciprocity for the wicked in the world to come. The world to come is the 7th millennia, and all who remain will be called tzaddikim, righteous, period, okay? Righteous, which means there's no room for anyone who is wicked during their lifetime. That's why God pays them in their life. As written in 2 Kings 5:1, for through him had the Lord given victory to Aram. Right? It says, now Naaman, the general of the king of Aram, was a prominent man before his Lord and respected. For through him had the Lord given victory to Aram. And the man was a great warrior, and he was a Metzorah. So in order to receive his due, he did good before God, so God paid him back. You want to know why the most evil and abominable people in this world are the wealthiest and most powerful? Because God is perfectly just. I want you to have an idea of what's coming to you. Take your pick of anyone up there, okay? In the high 3 commas clubs, okay? You know they're evil, billionaires, okay? You know they're evil. Maybe not all of them, but you can see the ones who are making noise, the ones who are, why are you dictating to the world how to live? Oh, now you're a pharmaceutical expert. Oh, now you're a farming expert. Interesting. Okay. Expect shortages. Oh, wait. Yes. Are you seeing the patterns? Okay, good. Anyway, so you see what they say. You see what they do, right? But these are the only ones that you know about. There's plenty more that you don't even know about. So how could it be that God is rewarding them with such abundance? They could buy the world if they wanted, right? Because this is all they have. When they die, game over, man. It's all over. That's it. And they know it, right? Which is why they're obsessed with immortality, or at least longevity. They may have done a few good things in their life, even by accident, even by default. But every single thing is counted and reciprocated, right? They might, let's say they have foundations. Most of it goes to terrible things that they're not telling us, but still it pays salaries uphold households, and so on and so forth. You know, that's it. So you did good, so you get it in this world, period. Okay? But then that's it. So, you know what? Give them their lifetime. 80, 100 years. You know what? With whatever they're putting in there, give them 120. Give them 200. It doesn't matter, right? With insane wealth, I'll take eternity with God. That's it. And this is what we're looking at to try and emulate these people. Oh, I wouldn't be like that. No, you don't. No, you don't. Okay? Never be envious of these people, because if you are, it will sway you in that direction. Wherever the eyes go, the heart and mind and body will follow, right? Wherever I look, all of a sudden, now my mind is there. I saw this thing this week. There was this guy who was giving tricks, because I'm on my computer a lot of the day to write these things down and other work. So when you get up, everything kind of gets fuzzy. So he says, every 90 minutes, you should get up and just go stand by the window and look outside to relax your eyes, not to focus on one thing. Or you could do exercises. Well, you look at your thumb, close, far, and you move it around. He said something so fascinating. He said, the eyes program the brain. The brain follows the eyes. What does it say in our Shema? Do not go after your heart, after your eyes, which you will follow. That's why it says you have to take care of your eyes. Wherever your eyes go, that's where all your being is going to follow. So this guy said something, modern science, right? But it was written in the Shema, in the 5 books of Moses, 3,300 years ago. Baruch Hashem. These things are absolutely amazing. Okay. So he says, then your priorities will shift if you do, in fact, go after them at the worst time possible, which is now, when I encourage you with everything to loosen the grip on physicality. This world, as we see, it's falling apart. Everything is happening simultaneously. Nothing is stable anymore, not the governments, not the food, not the health, not the rain, not the weather. Weather's crazy right now, right? These are all signs that everything that is happening simultaneously. We might have had this over the course of history, but never at the same time and now, okay? Because we're looking at the calendar, we're seeing how close we are. All this is happening now. These are the absolute times. I'm going to give you some more things about the times that we're in. So you have to understand the urgency and the focus that we need to have, because everything in the world right now through fear is going to cause you to do stupid things. You don't want to do that. You want to focus on what you need to focus. And these people, do not listen to a word they say. If they say something, do the opposite. You're better off. Okay. So start loosening your grip on physicality. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't work. Of course you should work. Torah says you should work. You need to eat, right? We need to do these things. And may God bless everyone with abundance, and may no one have any shortage of anything. However, the abundance and the luxuries of this world, everything is going to be passing away. So the more you tie yourself to that, the more painful it's going to be, because if you put yourself in that, then you're going to lose yourself with that, okay? So start loosening the grip. You can't take this anywhere, okay? However, God rewards greatly anyone who shows kindness to his children in this world and in the next, right? I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. Rabbi Shemaiah says, Abraham has written in his will, meaning he handed over all he had to Isaac as an inheritance. Katav leItzchak. Wrote, will, okay? Meaning here's the deed to everything I got. Remember, Abraham was the wealthiest dude in the world at the time. So in Genesis 24:10 it says, and the servant is Eliezer, right? And the servant took 10 camels of his master's camels, and he went, and all the best of his master was in his hand. Literally, because he had the deed. So how could it be in his hand? He was holding the deed to all of Abraham's fortune. What is the one thing that can encompass all of Abraham's wealth in his hand? The deed to all his wealth. And then we see the transfer in 25:5, and Abraham gave all that he possessed to Isaac. Here you go. Now we know and we've learned that Abraham gave Isaac so much more than just the physical wealth, right? He gave him the secrets of creation, the book of formation, which Abraham wrote, and so much more. He gave them the secret of conception, right? Remember the class, the Immaculate Conception that we discussed? This was that secret that Abraham handed down to Isaac, which he received from Melchizedek. Who was Melchizedek? It was Shem, son of Noah. Who received it from Noah, his father? Who did he receive it from? Methuselah. Who did Methuselah? Who did he receive it from? He received it from Enoch. Who received it from Seth? Who received it from Adam? Who received it from God? You got it. Okay, so he's continuing this. Here's the secrets to existence in the hands of Isaac. So Abraham was the wealthiest man in the world at the time, and needless to say, all his physical possessions were the least of the wealth and the treasures that he had, not to mention insignificant to him, which is why he received it in the first place. Like we said, Abraham could not give his wealth away fast enough. And it's not like he was looking necessarily where to give it, but his doors were open. People wanting to come and to know God, leave your idolatry at the door, and they would just join his camp. A lot of people didn't want to leave, but like we said, whenever they did leave, he would stuff their pockets with silver and gold If they were naked, he would clothe them. If they were hungry, he would feed them. Stay as long as you like. He had so much, so much, so much. And when it's time to go, you're like, well, I kind of don't want to go. If this is the man of the God of the universe, then give me some of that, right? Okay, it makes sense, right? So this is what Abraham did. He was chesed. What is chesed? Towards one another. And this is someone that can't, this is something that can't be faked either, right? Whether I don't care about the wealth, but in today's world, who doesn't care about the wealth? Especially wealthy people, they care about the wealth. Okay, that's how they got wealthy to begin with. God knows if you genuinely desire wealth or not, though. That's why you can't fake it, which is why Abraham was genuine. He took the document and placed it in the hands of Eliezer, his servant. How was Abraham so confident and trusting of his servant Eliezer, who we have learned had a secret desire for Abraham's wealth to begin with? You think Abraham would just blindly trust him? Abraham was no fool. Come on, it's Abraham. Probably also the wisest man in the world at the time, too. Again, it was Abraham versus the entire world, and Abraham won. This is a show of this man's greatness through his faith in God to place all his belongings and the future of his son in the hands of the one man who actually wants it. Who in their right mind would ever do something like that? What does Abraham say to God in Genesis 15:3? And Abraham said, "Behold, you have given me no seed, and behold, one of my household will inherit me." This one of his household, this was Eliezer, as Abraham knew. To which God replies in the next verse, "And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, saying, This one," meaning Eliezer, "will not inherit you, but the one who will spring from your innards will inherit you." Done and done. Hey, Eliezer, you want my stuff, right? Take this, go find my son a wife. Gone, skedaddle. He trusted God's word without question. Take a note, please, okay? Abraham put all his confidence in God and God alone. Shady situation, doesn't matter. God said so, it's done. It's done. He took the document and he placed it in the hands of Eliezer, a servant, that he should be honored in his father's house with his family. So in whose father's house? In Abraham's father's house, okay? Meaning he was going to where? To Haran, Abraham's brother. The town was called Haran after Abraham's brother. His wife Sarah's father. Sarah was actually Abraham's niece. So, yeah. Which is why he says, later on you'll see it says, "She is my sister," because he called Lot his brother. Why is Lot his brother? Because Lot and Sarah were siblings. Okay, so he was his nephew, but because he is the descendant of his brother, he is like his brother. Therefore, Sarah is like his sister, which is why when he said, "She is my sister," he wasn't lying, because that was a vernacular back in the day. So Haran, Abraham's brother, was the last stop before he came to Israel, and that was by respect. Out of respect, he called it his father's house, which he was commanded to leave. Right? Terach, that's where Terach died. Terach didn't even make it to Israel. They hung out there, over there. In Ur Kasdim. And Abraham left. Then he came back again. Then Lech Lecha, and he left again. So he said, "My father's house," because that's my father's spirit, if you will, was still in the vicinity. Okay, meaning his ownership. So. How did he know? Because he saw what wealth actually does to people, and although they were his family, they did not follow the ways of the Lord. He knew that they were idolaters. But one thing they did exceedingly well: they produced the 4 most amazing women on the planet against all odds, right? The matriarchs. Sarah came from there. Who else came from there? Rivka came from there. Leah and Rachel. From the houses of idolaters. Look what God can do. Now here's something that we don't see often in the Torah, but it happened right here to Eliezer. From Kiryat Arba unto Haran was a journey of 17 days, and in 3 hours the servant came to Haran. Again, a 17-day journey in 3 hours. This is called Kfitzat Haderech. Jumping or skipping of the way. Remember that terrible movie Jumper, right? With the two guys who were in the Star Wars, right? Okay, so where this person with this abilities to jump, basically to teleport anywhere in the world just through thought alone. Incidentally, there is a I got a book right here. Where's the book? I'll find it another time. Anyway, it's got the formula how to do it. No, I will never do this, not in my right mind, okay? Don't you mess with these things. It's called practical Kabbalah. If you want to meet your end terribly, then go ahead, by all means. Mess with that which you don't know. Anyway, he bounced 3 hours instead of 17 days. So it's kind of like, that movie, only less black hole and more super speed, if you will. It's just, and he's walking and all of a sudden he's just there. Anyway, the Radal says that he left around noon, okay, 12 o'clock noon, around 12:30, and arrived at around 3 to 3:30, just in time for Mincha, which is the prayer of Isaac. Abraham Shacharit, Vayashkem Avraham Baboker, and Abraham got up early in the morning, that is Shacharit, and then Mincha is Yitzchak's, and then Yaakov Tiken Tfilat Arvi, to the evening prayer. Okay, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, so just in time for Mincha. He was astonished in his mind, and he said, "This day I went forth, and this day I arrived," as said in Genesis 24:42. "So I came today to the fountain. And I said, O Lord, God of my master Abraham, if you desire to prosper my way upon which I am going. Va'avo hayom el ha'ain. I came today. I left today. Here I am. Okay. Meaning it was indeed the same day that he left. Now, these things have also been recorded to happening in the Talmud to our sages. And even later through, like we said, practical Kabbalah, it has been done many a time by certain Kabbalists through certain incantations. As we have discussed before, this is not witchcraft, okay? These are the secrets that were handed down to Adam. Yeah. And I'm not even going to share the books with you. Okay, fine. These were handed down to Adam. How to move through this world if you govern the angels, which man is supposed to do. If you govern the angels and if you are worthy, then you can change reality. Okay, and this is not against God's will because this was the original plan anyway, and it's going to go back to it. So it's not witchcraft, but rather the knowledge of the governance of God. The catch is that you need to say the right words in the right times with the right intentions. By doing so, you invoke the names of certain angels for over certain things at certain times of day, in certain directions that you need to be facing. And if you do so, you'll see this result. But if you do not come correct, if you have any blemishes on you, which is why just don't do it, they will tear you apart. Why is this mortal calling upon an eternal being? Why? Who are you? Don't do that. So, was Abraham's servant a righteous person? That this sort of miracle should be done to him? From our understanding, absolutely not. Not only did he want Abraham's fortune, but on the way back, he had his mind to take Rivka as a wife for himself, which is why on the way back to Abraham with Rivka, the 17-day journey also took 3 hours. So essentially, he was gone for a day. He left, and then he came back. Rabbi Abahu said, the Holy One, blessed be he, wished to show loving kindness, chesed, to who? To Isaac, because of Abraham. And he sent an angel before Eliezer, and the way was shortened for him, so that the servant came to Haran in 3 hours. So this had nothing to do really with Eliezer. Again, he was sent by Abraham. He was the extension of Abraham at that point, and everything to do with honoring Abraham, Isaac, and then Rivka. There's so much that happened in the story. In fact, it's one of my favorite teachings that I've actually done 2 specific teachings on, one before and then one after, right? So check it out. It's called The Princess Bride. Just, put it in the search over there on YouTube for Parashat Chayei Sarah. As you will see the difference between the angel and the servant within the story, right? It goes through all these verses and then the servant said, but before that, and he said, and the man said, there's a man, which is the angel, and then there's the servant. 2 different things. Okay, so check it out. And everything is revealed before the Holy One, blessed be He. Of course it is. This has been set up since before everything. A daughter of kings, who in all her life had never gone forth to draw water, this is Rivka, went out to draw water in that hour. She had never gone out to do this, and there she was, right? Obviously, speaking of Rivka, if you see not Eliezer's prayer, but rather the man's prayer, it changes. Read that. But was her father a king, or is this alluding to the fact that she is indeed the daughter of the king, meaning one of his people? Yes to both. Bethuel, her father, who was Abraham's nephew. Bethuel, her father, was the king of that area, and she was his prized possession. Furthermore, it is true that what was written as the daughter of the king never goes out to town alone. She remains inside because that is where her power and glory resides. As the Psalms in 45:14 says, Kol kvuda bat melech pnima mimishpatzot zahav levusha. All honor and glory of the king's daughter is within her. Or is within. Her raiment is superior to settings of gold. And this is how it is. This is why everything is covered with the woman, because that is the true glory. There was I don't know if I mentioned it here. I heard these accounts about this woman. She had a clinical death. She came back and everything, and she was charged for not covering her hair, and so here now you see a woman with a married woman with uncovered hair, long flowy hair. Sure, it's beautiful, it's attractive and everything, but the way that looks in the heavens is quite the opposite. In other words, a woman that covers her hair, spiritually speaking, that is her crown of glory, whereas a woman who does not cover her hair, which is a sign of immodesty, is spiritually hideous. So it's the opposite. Everything is the opposite of what it might seem over here. Okay, so what does this mean? This is a direct message for the daughters of Israel. Now, listen up now, okay? I want to use this opportunity to bring a very, very important message. I'm going off the topic, Avi. I do most of the time anyway. Nevertheless, we need some musar over here. So I'm gonna use that, okay? So this is for the daughters of Israel. So I want to use this opportunity to bring a very important message. The Ben Ish Chai, here? Ben Yehoyada Shas. I've taught from his books before. He was Rabbi Yosef Chaim, lived in Baghdad. He passed around 100 years ago. This man was emanating light, and it wasn't that long ago that it wasn't so long ago that he lived, and we actually have living witnesses to attest to his genius, his modesty, and his wisdom in Torah. The people that were learning in the Beis Midrash, they knew he was approaching because the hallway would light up before you arrived there. This man knew things like you wouldn't believe. You remember the teaching I gave on the positive signs of the negative prophecies? That was him. He takes the entire Shas over there, all of the Talmud, and he interprets it in a very, very positive way. It blows your mind, and it all makes sense too. So in any case, so this man, like we said, he was absolutely incredible. Now this next part that I'm going to share with you are the words spoken by Rabbi Yosef Zlicha, who heard from his father, who was a student of the Ben Ish Chai. So in other words, he heard from his father who witnessed these words being said. They asked the Ben Ish Chai, Shalu et Ben Ish Chai, ten lanu siman, matai yavo HaMashiach? Give us a sign, when will the Messiah come? Amar lahem, yesh Gemara, besof Masechet Sotah, yesh sham et kol hasimanim. Ma atem motzim? It says in the Talmud, right? You got a Masechet Sanhedrin, it says, also in Masechet Sotah, even in the Mishnah it says that in the end of chapter 9, it says everything and all the signs, which basically is what we're seeing today, worse than at any other point in history. Here it is right now. So he says, so what do you want from me? You got everything right there. Amru lo, they said to him, lo, anachnu rotzim siman yoter barur. We're not good with that. I mean, we're great with that, of course, but we want an even clearer sign that we know when is Messiah going to come. Amar lahem, He said to them, Tid'u lachem, you should know this, okay? Yavo zman, there will come a time, shebnot Israel, that the daughters of Israel, barechovot tilbashna chatzi kesut, that they will walk around the streets, that the daughters of Israel will walk around the streets half covered. In my life, I have never seen more half-dressed than what is going on right now. Barechov ilchu bechatzi beged. Ted'u lachem shehageula krova. In the streets, they will walk with half a dress. Half of their bodies completely exposed. You see this, you know that the redemption is near. Okay? היה כזה, כאשר יגיעו ימות המשיח, בנות ישראל ילכו בחצי כסות, ובחורי ישראל יהרגו בגללם. So you should know that the daughters of Israel will walk around half naked or half dressed. This ain't a cup half full type of thing. It's empty, okay? Right before the coming of Messiah, they will walk in the streets half dressed, and the young men of Israel will die because of them. When this was said, you must understand, immodesty anywhere in the world was something unheard of, especially in Iraq, in these Muslim nations. They're covered from head to toe. The Jews dressed exactly like the Muslims did, very modestly, head to toe. Okay? Unheard of, not only in the Gentile world, but the daughters of Israel. Immodesty just really didn't exist then. But if you look around the world today, you know what? Fine, but Israel today, there's not much that covers their bodies, okay? It's really hard to go anywhere. It really hurts, okay? And the young men of Israel will die because of them. How so? When you walk around half naked, you do so for one reason only, to get attention. Meaning you want young men or old men or whoever to look at you. And when a glance becomes a look, and a look becomes a stare, and a stare becomes a glare, that's where your thoughts have already manifested. God knows what they've already manifested in your conscious and subconscious. Then you take that with you, and whatever you do, especially if you try and do something holy, you see what you saw, and it causes a great divide. And that's your best case scenario. Because from there on, those thoughts which you have allowed to manifest within you will bring about the spilling of seed through either masturbation or sexual immorality. And if not that your seed will be spilled while you sleep. We already discussed this. So gentlemen, we are responsible for ourselves. And ladies, this also falls on you. So again, the good thing is we are on the very doorstep of redemption. Because not much more could come off, right? You may as well just stop wearing clothes altogether. But the bad thing is that many of Israel will perish, especially because of this. As we know, and we've taught of this time and again, the final redemption will mirror and be way more extreme than the Exodus from Egypt. How many of Israel, I got to say this again for anybody who hasn't watched these before, how many of Israel left Egypt? 20%, which means 80% of all of Israel in the world, Jews, tribers, will not make it. And this is at least one of the many reasons why. So, yes, we are in the days of redemptions. Yes, the Messiah is supposed to come shortly, but at what cost? Bnot Israel. Anyway, look, this is something I struggled with my whole life. Whatever. Anyway, so this is, it's a thing. Isaiah said in 3:16, and the Lord said, because the daughters of Zion are so haughty, and they walk with their necks stretched forth, and winking eyes, walking and raising themselves, those are heels, by the way, and with their feet they spout venom. And as a result, in verse 25, your men shall fall by the sword and your heroism in war. So that's not only the opinion of the Ben Ish Chai, it's right there in Isaiah. That be now. So like we said, Israel has been saved by righteous women and will again in the end be saved by righteous women. There are righteous women and then there are not righteous women. But immoral women cause death and they will be deleted before the time of the end along with any man who follows them. We've already learned about these things. Please take this with you. And so whoever makes it through the purge, because that's really what it is, that is on its way. God said of them in Isaiah 4:3, and it shall come to pass that every survivor, kol hanish'ar, the remnant, anyone left over, Betzion in Zion, and everyone who is left in Jerusalem will be called holy. Holy shall be said of him. Everyone inscribed for life in Jerusalem. Kadosh yomar lo. Kedoshim tiyu ki kadosh ani. You can't be holy if you follow your eyes. You can't be holy if you cause men to follow you. So again, please take note of this. And if you have any questions, you know how to reach me, okay? This is vital. This is it. The time is now. There's no, let me pray about it. There's nothing to pray about anymore. Action. Now back to a righteous and modest daughter of the king. Let's get back now, okay? Okay. And the girl, Rivka, who did not know who the man was, accepted the proposal to be married to Isaac. והנערה שלא הייתה יודעת מיהו האיש, קיבלה עליה להזדווג ליצחק. להזדווג, this is zivug, to become one. In another version of this, it says that she did not know man, meaning she was a virgin, right? And she did not know who Isaac was. And yet, she accepted. Why did she accept? Because she had been destined for him from his mother's womb, as it is said in Psalm 62:10, were they to be put on a scale together, they would equal vanity. What does this mean, right? The sons of men are but vanity, and men of distinction are deceitful. Were they to be put on a scale, together they would equal vanity. Why does Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer bring specifically this verse to explain that? Look at this thought process. It means that who you are going to be within your life has already been decided from the time that you were being formed. Again, based on your own decisions throughout your life. Which is why the thoughts that we have of who we believe that we are to be with, not only who we are to be, but who we are to be with, or who we want to be with, are nothing more than vain thoughts, because they are irrelevant. And also, while Isaac and Rivka were being formed, at that point, they themselves were irrelevant, meaning, what are you doing? You're being formed. You are irrelevant. You have no say whatsoever, right? Okay. In this case, no matter what happened or what could have happened, Isaac and Rivka were destined for one another. That's it. Just like God told Abraham to give him the thing. Nothing's going to happen. Lavan and Bethuel answered. Listen to this language. Lavan and Bethuel answered. Since this word has come forth from the mouth of the Almighty, mipi hagvura, we cannot delay it, as it is said in Genesis 24:50-51. And Lavan and Bethuel answered and said, the matter has emanated from the Lord. We cannot speak to you either bad or good. Behold, Rebekah is before you. Take her and go, and let her be a wife for your master's son, as the Lord had spoken, which incidentally is the last time we see Bethuel anywhere. But actually, this is the last time he was alive. You see, that evening, when they ate and drank, as it says in verse 54, and they ate and drank, he and the men who were with him, and they lodged, and they arose in the morning, and he said, send me away to my master, right? So they ate, they drank. Now, we just read that they agreed to let her go, and be quick about it. But then in the next verse, and her brother and her mother said, let the maiden stay with us a year. All of a sudden, it's like, wait, no. They're changing the story, but who's saying it? Where's Bethuel? It's her brother and mother. Let us stay with her a year or 10 months. Afterwards, she can go. So, where is Bethuel? Well, he was murdered. By who? By Lavan, his son. So long as the servant was on a mission from Gad. Remember the Blues brother? We're on a mission from Gad, right? Okay, as long as you're on a mission from Gad, sent by Abraham, protected by the angel, no harm could possibly come to him. Lavan gave him a glass of poison, and the angel switched it to Bethuel. He went to sleep that night, didn't wake up. Why did Lavan want to kill him? Well, let me get the deeds to Abraham's property. I know how rich the dude is, and we'll keep the girl too. So, Bethuel, Rivka's father, went to sleep and wake up. Now, if you're asking why wasn't Lavan taken out, the answer is because he still needed to, what? He still needed to have kids of his own. Who were his daughters? Leah and Rachel. I still got use for you, so I'm going to allow you to breathe. A strong hint for this in the plain text is back in verse 50 that we read, and Lavan and Bethuel answered and said, since when does the son speak before the father? That should never happen, or is mentioned even before the father. By doing so, Lavan showed that he couldn't care less about Bethuel. He was, right, all about the money and the power, as we saw his cunning ways, meaning he probably would have taken him out anyway at some point. However, after I tell you what I'm going to tell you, everybody here is going to be very happy that Bethuel was taken out. But that's in a little bit. I'll get back to this. All right, so let's keep reading from the text. The servant arose early in the morning and saw the angel standing and waiting for him in the street. He said to them, Genesis 24:56, but he said to them, do not delay me, since the Lord has made my way prosper. Send me away and I will go to my master. He saw him waiting for him there. For behold, the man who came with me yesterday, says PDE, he has prospered my way. Behold, he is standing and waiting for me in the street. I got to go. That's the express train. This was the angel who led him and guarded him on the way because he was sent on a sacred mission. This is the same angel who spoke on his behalf, sometimes through him. They ate and drank at Rebekah's banquet. What is Rebekah's banquet? This was the engagement party. Like a cantor who is standing and blessing the bride in her bridal canopy, so they stood and blessed Rebekah, their sister, who was going to be married to Isaac, as it is said, and they blessed Rebekah and said unto her, our sister. Genesis 24:60, meaning this was a done deal. Okay, we accept this is happening. He also gave them gifts, and it says he gave gifts to her brother and mother, not to the father, because the father was not there. No, this was not the actual marriage, obviously, but all throughout biblical times, betrothal is the same as marriage. If you are betrothed to someone, okay, and that someone strays while you are engaged, that is considered adultery. You know, like that other story. At 6 hours of the day, the servant went forth from Haran, and he took Rebekah and Devorah, her nurse, and made them ride upon the camels. Now the day starts between 6 and 6:30. Ever since they changed the clocks for daylight savings time, they messed everything up. I was always wondering how the sages could learn Torah all night. When do they sleep, right? They learn all night and then they wake up in the morning. They go to sleep when the sun goes down. When it's not daylight savings time, 5:30, 6 o'clock, 6:30, it's nighttime. They go to sleep, they wake up at 12:30. So they sleep for 6 hours, they wake up at 12:30, they learn Torah all night, they daven shacharit at 6:30 in the morning. That's how it was. These are the proper times to do things, but now everything is so messed up, you don't know what's what and when's when. And oh yeah, they do this on purpose. Anyway, so he left 6 hours of the day, meaning around 12 or 12:30 p.m. He left them to return to Abraham exactly the same time that he left the day before. And as we discussed, he had kfitzat haderech as before. This was so he shouldn't get any funny ideas about the deed to Abraham's fortune. That was on the way there. And why on the way back? So that the servant, here's what the text says, the servant should not be alone with the maiden, meaning with Rebekah, by night. Therefore, he had kfitzat derech, and in 3 hours the servant came to Hebron at the time of the prayer of the afternoon evening, mincha. So that means he arrived at the very same time to Isaac as he did to Rebekah. 3 p.m., 3:30, mincha time. This is the time that, as the sun starts to set, again, we're talking about and as things should be, not in today's time. By 3 o'clock, 3:30, the sun's already moving lower, right? This is a time that the judgments begin to enter into the world, which is why mincha is so important, because it softens the judgments. This specifically is called mincha ktana, which is basically, it says from 9.5 hours after daybreak. So it was about that time. Shabbat, there's mincha earlier. The Sfardis, they daven at 1 p.m. Ashkenazis daven it right before Marv, usually at the end of the day. So in other words, right before the sun sets, they do a quick mincha and they go directly into Marv instead of bouncing all over the place. Anyway, this is mincha ktana. It's the first mincha that you could daven. The first moment that, okay, sun is there, now I could go, and that's what they do. The big mincha, like we said, is usually right before sunset, but the sun still has to be in the sky. But Isaac, being Isaac, he hit that mark. This is his prayer after all. Okay, so it's Isaac's prayer. And Isaac had gone forth to say the afternoon evening prayers. It says in Genesis 24:63, and Isaac went forth to pray in the field towards evening, and he lifted his eyes, and he saw, and behold, camels were approaching. Vayatze Yitzchak lasuach basadeh, when lifnot erev, towards the evening time. Vayesayenav, and he lifted his eyes. Vayera, and he saw, vehine, and behold, Gmalim ba'im, camels be coming. What is lasuach basadeh? The literal translation, lasuach, to discuss. Anachnu tzachim lenahel sicha. We have to have a conversation, you and I. Lasuach basadeh, he went to converse in the field. But our sages say, ein sicha ela tfilah, not to converse, but to pray. He did in fact converse with God, but is that not prayer? Okay, Psalms 102:1, a prayer for a poor man when he enwraps himself and pours out his speech before the Lord. Tefillah la'ani ki ya'atof velifnei Adonai yishpoch sicho. Okay, sicho, sicha, lasuach. How do we pray? A prayer for a poor man when he enwraps himself and pours out his speech before the Lord. So, even though you do say Tehillim and you do read from the Siddur, absolutely, that is vital. This was given to us from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Do not stop saying that. But any moment that you can, something, this and that, please, Avinu Shabashamayim, Heavenly Father, I ask for help in this and this and this and this and this and that, or whatever. Speak. Hey, I'm frustrated right now. It's best to do it, especially when you realize that something is wrong and that you are struggling. That's the best time to do it. God knows you're struggling. But now you know it too. You understand now? We're on the same page. God, I'm struggling with this right now. I know that you put me in this situation. Why am I in this situation? Don't remove me from this situation. You put me in this situation because I need to learn something from this situation. And if this seems impossible, the situation that I'm in, I also know, we know, that God never puts anybody in anything that they cannot get out of. In other words, you need to learn and you need to ace that test. These are called nisyonot, just like it was with our father Abraham, okay? God, I understand I'm here right now. Give me the strength and the constitution and the ability to make it through whatever it is that you put me here right now. I understand it is for my betterment, even though I cannot see it right now. Please help me get through this and help me learn what I need to learn. Amen. That's it. You understand? Give recognition in everything. Okay, and that's it. This is the recognition. This is the latest thing, if you will. If you give God recognition for everything, because right now the world is completely pushing God aside. So there are few of us who actually give God the recognition due to God. Baruch Hashem in everything. Okay, let's continue. Rabbi Shimon said, Abraham spoke to Isaac his son, saying, this servant is suspected of transgressions, and deceit is in this servant, as it is said in Hosea 12:8. I'm going to read to you the English and listen to the Hebrew. A trafficker who has deceitful scales in his hand, he loves to oppress. Referring to Eliezer, Canaan beyado, mozne mirma la'ashok ahav. Canaan, even if it's Kenoan, but it's Canaan, as in this was Canaan, who was cursed, right? Eliezer, Abraham's servant, was a descendant of Canaan, who told his descendants, Canaan told his descendants, to live by deceit and every nasty thing under the sun. Everything, steal, lie, murder, rape, pillage, just do it. Get as much as you can out of this world. Because again, he's cursed and he's living by that curse. Now listen, land of Canaan had to be cleansed from this because this is how they lived, right? So again, he was a descendant. Now listen up, because here's also a very teachable moment. In the Torah and within Judaism, from our sages and all the writings, you can find answers on every and any question you may have. Whatever question you may have, how to conduct yourself, the answer is in the Torah. Absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Okay? Even and especially when it comes to matters that may seem taboo in a sexual content. Like we said, the whole conversation we had a few weeks ago of the spilling of the seed and nighttime and this and that and all this stuff. Our sages discuss this in great detail because it is a thing. It's one of the curses that was handed down from Adam. So in other words, this is a real issue and we have to steer clear of that. Take preventative measures and so on. Okay? So the reason is that it's all important. Everything that happens is important, which is why it is discussed, as our sages will go into the tiniest of details, so there will be no room for even the slightest doubt, as Abraham brought up before Isaac. But there is a time and a place and a platform to discuss certain things. This is not it, okay? There are times where the Torah may speak in circles and in hints for the sake of its own modesty, because the Torah itself is a book of modesty. And you really need to understand what is being said to get the big picture. That's why if you don't speak Hebrew and you have not read all the Torah and you don't understand Jewish thought and you don't understand halacha and you don't read the sages and you think the oral law is garbage, and you don't read Talmud and you don't read Mishnah and you don't understand and you don't try and understand the deeper thoughts, you have to get this whole picture. So when you actually read the Pshat, the 5 books of Moses in the simple text, they'd be like, yo, yes, you get it. Most of these things cannot be taught. They can only be understood. Many times our sages say they'll give something very vague, which anybody can read, but then they will finish with, Vehavenze, understand this. Meaning, if you get it, you get it. If not, I can't teach it to you. But we can discuss it, but I can only discuss it with you if we're there, right? Okay, that's why a lot of these things are not taught publicly. Okay, so like we said, certain things should only be taught to those with a specific level of knowledge of Torah and understanding of the text, with enough wisdom to never take it to a negative place, but always and only see the positive within the Word of God. When it comes to sexual, personal, and intimate matters, these are discussed behind closed doors, with a separation between men and women for the sake of modesty. Okay, there are women's classes and there are men's classes, and under the proper guidance as well. But make no mistake, everything that you could possibly imagine is discussed. So you will not be able to stand before God and say, I didn't know. No excuses. Therefore, this next part, for the sake of modesty, I'm going to carefully and respectfully paraphrase. Remember when Abraham and any of his descendants swore an oath? I'll just give you an understanding. They said, place your hand beneath my thigh. It wasn't beneath my thigh. They would grab each other's brit. Right? Okay, so place your hand beneath my thigh. Just try not to look me in the eye. They would hold each other's brit. Can you do that today and it not be weird? No. But it doesn't say, and he grabbed him by his thing. It said, place your hand beneath my thigh. But you need to understand what is the covenant, because they made a covenant, you see. But you need to learn in order to see these things, and it's all over the Torah. So the more Torah you learn, the more understanding that you have, and then you go back to the simple text, and it's a whole new dimension. It's like watching an incredible movie that has an incredible twist in the end that you can now watch it again knowing what you know. And then every time you see something new, every single time, and it blows your mind, and it never takes away from anything. It always increases. That's the Torah. I mean, in an oversimplified way of explaining it. Okay, anyway, Abraham tells Isaac that Rivka needs to be checked to see that she is intact, right? Because of Eliezer's intentions. So where was this done? This was done in Sarah's tent. The Hebrew says ha'ohala, go to ha'ohala. We can see it also in the plain text, referring to Sarah's tent. As Abraham pitched Sarah's tent, it was ohala. Okay, so here's the deal. It wasn't only the Canaanite servant that was a point of concern, but rather, now we're going back to Bethuel, and I said, this is why y'all be happy that he's taken out. This is a tradition that they practiced in the land of Aram, where Rivka came from. And that was that before the father would send his daughter off to be married, he was the one that would actually take her virginity. Yeah. But God made sure that Rivka remained pure, which is why her father Bethuel was taken out of the equation. See, everything's got a reason. And it was his son that did it. Abraham continues, if she is pure, then she is yours from the Lord. Purity, going back to modesty and purity, it is a gift from God. A gift from God. Now, while I'm writing this, I'm thinking then of Leah and Rachel, right? And wondering if, God forbid, Lavan had his way with them, but immediately I smacked myself in the face and said, what, are you stupid? Do you really think that God would allow these righteous women to be defiled? I hung my head in shame, and I realized that although Lavan was as crooked as they come, and we know this, he would not quickly forget what happens to anyone who tried to mess with the seed of Abraham, okay? So if God saved Eliezer, who was a Canaanite servant from the house of Abraham, and killed his own father, how much more so would he protect Jacob and his wives? And Lavan knew that he had to marry them, which is also why he made the switcheroo, because all the tribes were originally supposed to come from Rachel. Anyway, and Joseph was supposed to be the firstborn. Reuben was the firstborn from Leah. Joseph was the firstborn from Reuben was the firstborn from Leah. Joseph was the firstborn from Rachel, but it was supposed to be Joseph and then 11 tribes after him. In any case, he messed that up to mess up the entire redemption process. So Lavan knew what was what. Anyway, I was satisfied with this understanding and moving along. Obviously, they were pure, just like God, killed Bethuel to make Rivka pure. Okay. Isaac did as his father said. And again, this was common practice back in the day, as the brides had to be 100% kosher. Unfortunately, virgins today are rarer than honest politicians. You may get one here and there, right? And either they play ball or, they get assassinated. After which he took her as in take her. That's very debatable as to the timeline, but the verse in Genesis 24:67 states, and Isaac brought her to the tent of Sarah, his mother. Vayevia Yitzchak ha'ohala Sarah imo. Vayikach et Rivka, and he took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her, and Isaac was comforted for the loss of his mother. Look at the beautiful order of things over here. Here's a guide to kosher dating, minus the actual. Anyway, first one, Isaac brought her to the tent of Sarah, his mother. Sarah set an impossible bar, right? The light went out in her tent when she died. And two, and he took Rebekah. Rivka met the bar, and they decided, okay, from the Lord, this is a go. Three, she became his wife, naturally, and then he loved her, because he could not have loved her beforehand. He didn't know her. In all these shidduch datings, the husband, the people who are actually dating, in tznius, of course, right? They see, okay, what are your interests? Not like, what kind of movies do you like? It's like, we're obviously shomer negir. We're not touching one another. We're seeing what kind of a home we want to live in. And if there is chemistry, if we get along, the conversation flows, and if we want the same things, that's our spiritual foundation over there, then they get married. Love comes, okay? Love is built on top of that. And even people that, let's say, have been dating for 6 months or a year, and then they get married, once they're married, they, you become intimate. You see each other in the best and worst of times. That's where the love really grows. So you can't have, I love you, let's get married, right? 65% and rising, the divorce rate, even amongst modern Orthodox. So if people want to get married for the reason of love, that's never a reason, because the moment that there's a problem, everything falls apart. Because some days, I really hate you, right? Even though I love you. So again, if you're led by your emotions, you're going down the drain. Okay. And Isaac was comforted for the loss of his mother. Now, the circle is finally complete. Rivka picked up the mantle of Sarah. Just as Sarah, his mother, was found to be kosher. It's not only physical abstinence until marriage, but also the way that you carry yourself as well. Please listen to this, okay? I have seen married, ultra-Orthodox women who are covered from head to toe, but the clothing is so tight. What's the point? Who are you fooling? I mean, really? These things are noticed by the right people for good and the wrong people for bad, as it was with Boaz and Ruth. Listen to this. Ruth chapter 2, verses 10 and 11. And she fell on her face and prostrated herself to the ground, and she said to him, this is Ruth to Boaz, why have I pleased you that you should take cognizance of me, seeing that I am a foreigner? Vani nochriya. I'm a foreigner, I'm a Moabite, he was from the tribe of Judah, I'm not a Judean, I'm not of Israel. And Boaz replied to her and said, it has been told to me, all that you did for your mother-in-law after your husband's death, and you left your father and your mother and your native land. That's the conversion, right? And you went to a people that you did not know before. You did all that. You let go of all that. I know that you are already a woman of character. You are focused. You are determined. You know exactly what you want. To make this journey, this is not easy at all. When all the other women were bending over to lift the wheat, Ruth crouched down, which is the consciousness of humility, tzniut. When you bend over, things might fall out from the front. Your tuchus is lifted up in the air. You're going to draw attention, even if it's, what? Oh, okay. This is how the girls around her did it. But she bent her knees and she crouched down, lifting things up in modesty. Okay, Ruth stuck out not like a sore thumb, but like a shining stone. And everyone saw this. People took notice. Listen, Ruth 3:10 and 11. And he said, may you be blessed of the Lord. We actually went through this verse. My daughter, your latest act of kindness is here. Hitav chesed, chasdecha acharon min harishon. Your latest act of kindness is greater than the first. Not to follow the young men, whether poor or rich. You're not running after the dudes like the other girls. Again, she's still a foreigner, right? And now, my daughter, listen up. And now, my daughter, do not fear. All that you say, I will do for you. Now, my daughter, listen up. Now, my daughter, get it? For the entire gate of my people know that you are a valiant woman. Everyone saw. People notice these things. People see these things. And it doesn't say a Jewish woman of valor. Now does it? It says a woman of valor, Moabite or otherwise. And when there's no one watching, just in case it's a very conscious show, oh, I'm so modest, that you're putting on, don't forget, God is always watching, okay? I'm just saying also, like for instance, see, I'm surrounded by books and I got more here and there. I got, a lot of holy things over here. I wouldn't dare walk around naked in this room, even if it's in the comfort of my own home, because you are surrounded by holy things. Then you have a mezuzah on every door, right? There are laws of purity even within the own home. There's modesty within your own home. It's training, but you have to start training yourself. Okay, so like we said, when there's no one watching, God is always watching. Now look what the verse in the text brings forth yet again in Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, Psalms 45:14, because all honor and glory of the king's daughter is within. Her raiment is superior to settings of gold. Kol kvuda bat melech pnima mishpatzot zahav levusha. If indeed you recognize God as your Father, then that will manifest in your behavior, both revealed and concealed, in public and behind closed doors. It's a mentality. It even goes with speech. I know sometimes I slip. I drop a cuss here and there, okay? And Arena doesn't have any of it. She's like, what did you? No, none of that. So I'm trying to train myself. But again, I before I did, tshuva, I had a potty mouth, big time, okay? And now I'm blessing God with the same mouth, and I'm saying blessings, and I also, there's snoot from men and women also. Again, it goes for, okay. But we're talking about right now the tzniut of a woman. Okay. And Isaac was comforted by the loss of his mother. While Sarah was alive, she spent most of her time in the tent. She was so holy that she would emanate radiance. She was like a shining light. And so she chose to remain hidden for the sake of what? Of modesty. Not only did she radiate holiness, but Sarah was known to be the most beautiful woman ever. In all the Tanakh, Sarah was, again, she was like, she started doing the rectification for Eve, okay? So the first man and woman, gorgeous, if you will. Not like today, right? But so Sarah was what? Which is why when Abraham actually saw her, looked upon her physical self, because she was always covered, as they were going down to Egypt, he looked at her in the physical sense. Now, she wasn't walking around naked at all. Sarah was covered from head to toe, absolutely. But he just looked at her and he says, you need to get in the box because they're going to kill me. You are way too hot to be walking around in public. And don't worry, we'll also discuss this later on. Okay, so yeah, if anybody's got questions, we'll discuss it. Not now, future classes. Hence, the Israelites have a custom. There's PDE. Hence, the Israelites have a custom of producing the tokens of the damsel's virginity, that there should be no room left for doubt. As it is said, where? 5 books. Deuteronomy 22:15. Then the girl's father and her mother shall obtain evidence of the girl's virginity, and take it out where? To the elders of the city, to the gate. So everyone knows that this girl is pure, that there should be no doubt. It's not something, obviously, that you would do today. Like I said, go find a virgin today amongst the modern day society. These things really don't exist. But this is how it was. This is how Israel did it. Everyone needed to know because purity is a gift. Kedoshim tiyu ki kadoshani. God said, you need to be pure because I'm pure. You need to be holy because I'm holy. This is the only way for us to fuse together. When you are not, I leave. When you are, I return. See how that works? Okay. If it's written in 5 books of Moses, so you know it's legit. Now, if any of you out there have an uncomfortable feeling, or feelings of regret or shame after hearing everything that I said based on your life choices, I say to you right now, that's absolutely amazing. Okay? Because that means that you have already begun your tshuva process. We are called to do tshuva every day. Every day, we lashuv, to return more and more and closer to God. And I place myself within this group, absolutely. Although I grew up, listen to me now, I'm sharing more of myself with you now. Although I grew up modern Orthodox, throughout my life, no one sat me down and explained to me that what I was doing caused so much damage to myself and to others, not to mention all of Israel and the rectification of the world. I've made it publicly known for the sake of others how I used to live, that I used to live like a rock star, not in a band, okay? And not in anything good that's coming from there. The things that I've done, the carelessness that I exuded when it came to my own purity or lack thereof, is something I'm currently paying for still and making a tikkun for. So I'm grateful that I still have breath in me, that I can do a rectification for what I damaged. I would sometimes, now over the last 2 years that I'm married, I'd sit and just cry out of frustration to my wife about how I used to live my life. Sometimes thoughts will come up. I'm like, I can't believe I did that. I think of who I used to be and the things that I've done, and I disgust myself. I'm like, it's so not me, but that is still me. You understand? I kept saying, if only someone would have told me and explained to me and showed me and guided me, I never would have done that. Or at least I would have had a fighting chance, but at least I would have known. You understand? All these things that now I'm teaching you, I had to learn for myself based on everything that I've done. And in the end, over the last 7 years, I've been in this, seeing these things, and new things keep coming to light. Unfortunately, though, that's the biggest problem with what is called today modern orthodoxy, is that the Torah is mixed in with the physical world. I'm not painting this with a wide brush, but there's Orthodox, modern Orthodox. What's the difference? It's usually the dress, and modern Orthodox are a little bit more, women will, they'll wear more revealing clothing. They won't necessarily cover their hair. And so there's more free, they're more lax on actual halachot. They'll look Orthodox in a sense. The men will. They keep Shabbat, kosher, and all that stuff, but everything else is mixed. So I could, for instance, put on tefillin in the morning, eat kosher, learn Torah. Then I could go out to nightclubs and everything that comes with it, okay? Wake up elsewhere the next morning and then rinse and repeat. And like it was no big deal, but it is. So I say to you, male, female, whatever, no matter what you have done or what was done to you, no matter what, hear me now, no matter what you have done, no matter how bad you think it is. Malachi 3:7, Shuvu elai va'ashuva elechem. Return to me and I will return to you. That's it. Shuvu, tshuva. From the days of your fathers you have departed from my laws and have not kept them. That would be me. Return to me, and I will return to you, said the Lord of hosts. How do we return? Psalms 51:19. The sacrifices of God. What are the sacrifices of God? They're a broken spirit. Oh God, you will not despise a broken and crushed heart. How do we approach God? Take my heart. I need you to know how I feel and how much regret I have. The moment we regret, that means that your soul is already crying out. The moment you're doing something and you know it's wrong and it bothers you, that means that you're good. The moment that you keep doing these things, you become desensitized and it stops bothering you, that's when we got very, very big problems. All right? So when your soul cries out, that's a good thing because now you have God's attention. And he will not turn away according to his own word. God, you said you will not despise a broken and crushed spirit and a crushed heart. Here I am coming before it. But you need to mean it because he's going to know when you mean it. I'm telling you from personal experience, more than once you come to God like this, you will get your answers. It will be very humbling. It will be very, very painful. Like you would not believe. It's like a limb would be sawed off with a spoon or something. But it will be worth it because that needs to be removed from you. As we said, the process of tshuva is simple. The work itself is anything but the process is simple. You got regret? Good. Go with that. Regret? Stop doing what you are doing. Just stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Then stay away from it. Those are your weaknesses. Get away from there. Then what do? You place safety measures for insurance. I'm not going to go there. Oh, every time I walk there, I fall down the ditch. What do? Build a wall, build a moat, build a fence, have signs, keep doing that. And once you're done with that, run just in the opposite direction. Okay? Go in the opposite direction of the sin, which is by default towards God. Okay? Okay, these are the steps. It's hard. It's work. I know, but it's worth it. So again, I tell you, I have been there. I have lived there. I know what you're going through. Trust me. And I tell you, God never left me. He was just waiting for me to leave it. You see? And the moment that I was out of impurity, even for a moment, in other words, the moment that when I came back to Israel, even though I was still living in impurity, the moment I came back to Israel, that's when he got me. And my life has changed ever since because of that. And again, when I was living in Vegas, I was living like Vegas and still praying and meditating and screaming, why aren't you answering me? What do I need to do? I need to take you out of this filth just for a moment so I can discuss some things with you. And boy, did he. Smooth sailing? Not even close. A daily struggle? You better believe it. Is it worth it? If I had 1,000 years, I would not be able to express my gratitude to God for his love. And so I do the only thing that I can. I help others where I have fallen. And so I share myself with you with whatever is appropriate to share on camera. Take courage. He's got us all. As it says in Psalms 145:18, the Lord is near to all who call him. Here's the catch. To all who call him with sincerity or in truth. Lechol asher ikra'uhu be'emet. Karov Adonai lekol korav. Anyone who calls to God. God, I need help. Okay. All right. But broken heart, right there. Right there. And it's written right there. Okay? Take this to him. If anybody has any questions about this, if you're struggling, then contact me. Okay? This is why I'm here. This is what I'm doing. Okay? I don't know you, but if you're seeing this right now, you got struggles. This is my purpose right now. Okay, so let's continue. Thank you for indulging me with this. The steward of Abraham's household was his servant Eliezer. There's a lot. Was his servant Eliezer. And where did he come from? Where did Eliezer come from? When Abraham went forth from Ur of the Chaldeans, Ul Kasidim, all the magnates, all the machers, the big guys of the kingdom came to give him gifts. And Nimrod, that's right, Nimrod who threw Abraham in the fire, wrote, Katav et avdo Eliezer. He wrote his servant Eliezer and gave him to Abraham. Now, I've read Midrashim that says Eliezer was actually Nimrod's son, but we're about to see that that's actually unlikely. So, for context, let's read the book of Jasher, of where all these things, all these gifts came from. Incidentally, I just wanted you to know, because I spoke of the book of Jasher to the group, and I had some questions on it. How come the book of Jasher says different things than it actually says in the 5 books of Moses? And I'm telling you this, the book of Jasher is midrash. It's an extra biblical text. The 5 books of Moses are indisputable. That's what it is. That's the truth. Different numbers, doesn't matter. You go with the 5 books of Moses. Why is it different over there? Who knows? I was actually looking. No one says anything on it because you just take it for what it is. It fills in certain gaps. It fills in the blanks over there, like what happened to, behind the scenes. Sometimes we read one verse in the Torah and years have gone by in the middle of that verse in the book of Jasher. Okay, so it fills in the blanks, but you take it for what it is. That is not canon. The 5 books of Moses, that is the infallible word of God. End of story. Okay, so we're going to read the book of Jasher to see what these gifts were, as well as the souls that Abraham and Sarah acquired before they even came to the land of Canaan. So this is right after Abraham was thrown in the fire and is walking about the fire for 3 days and came out unscathed. And the king, princes, and inhabitants of the land, seeing that the king was Nimrod. It's just like bouncing. Okay, fine. Seeing that Abraham was delivered from the fire, they came and bowed down to Abraham. So now everyone in the world, remember, Nimrod was the king of the world. Now the king of the world and everybody else is coming bowing down to Abraham. And Abraham said, come, I will take your sins away. No. And Abraham said to them, do not bow down to me, right? But bow down to the God of the world who made you and serve him and go in his ways. For it is he who delivered me out of the fire. And it is he who created the souls and spirits of all men and formed man in his mother's womb and brought him forth into the world. And it is he who will deliver those who trust in him from all pain. This is the way a king is supposed to act. This is the way Mashiach is supposed to act. This is what Adam did with the angels, as we saw, and this is what Abram did with the sons of men. Then what are you bowing down to me for? Come. Let's go. Okay, here we go. That's the direction you want to go, and I'm just here to point over there. Do not bow down to me, but come and let us all go together and bow down to he who created us all. And this thing seemed very wonderful in the eyes of the king and princes, princes are rulers, not necessarily the sons of the king, that Abram was saved from the fire and that Haran, his brother, was burned. And the king gave Abram many presents, and he gave him his 2 head servants from the king's house. The name of the one was Oni, and the name of the other was Eliezer. Here we go. And all the king's princes and servants gave Abram many gifts of silver and gold and pearl. He left a wealthy dude. And the king and his princes sent him away, and he went in peace. And Abram went forth from the king in peace, and many of the king's servants followed him. And about 300 men joined him. And Abram returned on that day and went to his father's house, he and the men that followed him. And Abram served the Lord his God all the days of his life. Amen. And he walked in his ways and followed his law. That's right, his law. I told you, Abraham kept the Torah before it was given. And from that day forward, Abram inclined the hearts of the sons of men to serve the Lord. When Eliezer had, so that's the book of Jasher. We're going back to Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer. When Eliezer means God is my helper. Okay, it's a good thing. It's a good name. So, right. There are rabbis called Ishmael. Ishma will hear El. God will hear my cries. These are, just because they're Nimrod, don't call your kid Nimrod. Although, that's the other thing. In Israel, Nimrod is a common name. It's like, hey, Nimrod. Hey, Adolf. How's it going? And just kidding, but you may as well. One of the worst people there. Anyway, they just don't know. They just don't know. So when Eliezer had thus dealt kindly with Isaac, Abraham set Eliezer free, meaning you did your job, off you go. Remember, Nimrod gave Eliezer to Abraham. He was therefore his property and would have served him for life if he would not have set him free. Even though he didn't necessarily Abraham treated him very, very well. Any person that came around Abraham didn't want to leave because Abraham treated everyone with the abundance of loving kindness. Chesed, this is what he did. He showed people God. Okay, so why would you want to go elsewhere? In any case, he still, because of his origins, he had a desire for all the goodness. So, as a result, and the Holy One, blessed be he, gave him his reward, Eliezer, his reward in this world, so that there should not be a reward for the wicked in the world to come, like we discussed. Like we said, you wonder why the powers that be and the most evil and despicable people on the planet, have all this wealth, because when they die, it's over. So God gave them, like we said, 70, 100 good years, in this limited physical fallen world, which they traded in for eternity. These people are called fools. Right? You don't want to be like them. So what did God give him as a reward? What did God give Eliezer? Because he did kindness served Abraham well, and he did a kindness to Yitzchak. What did he give Eliezer? He made him a king. And which king did Eliezer become? He became, says Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, he became Og, Melech HaBashan. Og, the king of Bashan. That's right, the massive giant king in Numbers 21:33. Then they turned and headed north towards Bashan. Og, the king of Bashan, came out towards them with all his people to wage war at Edrei. The Lord said to Moses, do not fear him, for I have delivered him, his people, and his land into your hand. You shall do to him as you did to Sichon, the other giant king, of the Amorites, who dwells in Heshbon. They smote him, his sons, and all his people, until there was no survivor, and they took possession of his land. Now, I have taught of this giant in the past, and there are many hinting that he would in fact become Og, the king of Bashan, the giant king of Bashan. Remember when it says, and Abraham went to war with the 4 kings who defeated the 5 kings, and Abraham took 318 of his men, 318 dudes against 4 armies who defeated 5 armies? We're talking about tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people. You read in the Midrash how he did it. He picked up sand and he threw the sand, and each grain of sand turned into a spear. That's pretty handy, right? Okay, but 318 is the numerical value of the name Eliezer. That's a hint right there. So is Abraham and his 300-foot giant to start stomping on everyone. That's pretty useful. And how could they possibly carry back all the loot that the other kingdoms stole from Sodom and Gomorrah and from all the other places over there? How could you possibly carry all that stuff? Even 318 men couldn't carry all that stuff, but a 300-foot giant can. Okay. So Sichon was already Sichon was already taken out. Sichon, right before they went to war with Og, and he was another massive giant. But there was no fear; they weren't afraid of that giant. So why were Israel afraid? How do we know that Israel were afraid? Because God said in the verse, "Do not fear him," which means Moses and the children of Israel, but particularly Moses, feared him. Why did Moses fear him? Moses knew that he was the same servant of Abraham who had been circumcised as a member of Abraham's household. Therefore, he may have some level of favor, right? And God made him king. So, furthermore, this dude was arguably a pre-flood giant. Actually, from other sources, it says that he held on to Noah's Ark, that he was on the roof of the ark, that there was other pieces of wood. His skin was being boiled. Noah was feeding him through a latch. There are all these stories, but in any case, Og, the pre-flood giants, they're one and the same. Okay, so, and after which, he just kept on growing and growing for hundreds of years. We're already talking towards the end of the time of Moses, and still over there from the time of Nimrod. Okay, that's a while. So we're talking at least 400 or 500 years. Yeah, 430. Easy, 500 years. Okay, but look what Targum Yonatan says. Sorry, I gotta just get it out of my face. Okay. Look what Targum Yonatan says. I showed you Targum Yonatan. He translates in Aramaic the 5 books of Moses, and he gives incredible insights. It's prophecy, basically, to another outlook of what actually went down, and it's all true. Okay, so when Moses saw Og, the Og, he said, meaning that guy, the OG, this is the wicked one who tormented Abraham and Sarah. How did he torment Abraham and Sarah? Who would say that they are beautiful trees upon the waters, like the Psalms. Ketzim shtulei al pelgei mayim. You beautiful trees on the waters, but with no offspring, right? Because he wanted the deed. So because they are absolutely amazing, but no fruit, right? The trees don't produce any fruit, which is why God made sure that he would live as long as he did, so that he could not only see the children of Israel, who are the descendants of Abraham and Sarah, but that they would be the ones to end him. So you see, everything that is going on has a purpose. Everything that happens and will happen is perfect. Just because we don't see it means that we don't see it. And now, a seemingly different topic, part of our chapter. Okay, so we're talking. I mean, it's not really. It goes from what we started with the 7 days, but from the chain of events that we discussed, it's kind of like, okay, where are we going now? Anyway, so that's that. This is this. Robbie says, where do we learn that the days of the banquet are 7, right? Like we discussed in the beginning. From Samson, who descended to the land of the Philistines and took a wife and had a joyful celebration for 7 days, as written in Judges 14:11. And it was when they saw him that they took 30 companions and they were with him. Huh? What does it mean when they saw him? Meaning they saw him when they were eating and drinking with him, as it is seen in verse 12. Now Samson said to them, let me ask you a riddle. If you can tell it to me within these 7 days of feasting, and you will guess it, right? Took a wife, and not a kosher wife, but a wife. Then I will give you 30 linen sheets and 30 suits of clothing. And they could not guess it, as said. And then he said to them, from the eater come out food, and from the strong come out the sweetness. He's talking about the honey and the lion, right? But they could not tell the riddle for 3 days, which means he probably asked them on the 4th day. The groom is likened to a king. Just like a king does not go out to the marketplace unescorted, so too a groom does not go out to the marketplace unescorted. Gotta have an entourage, like we learned. Just as a king is dressed in garments of glory, so the bridegroom is dressed in garments of glory for the 7 days of the feasting. Just as a king is praised by everybody, so is the bridegroom praised by everybody during the 7 days of the feast. That's pretty self-explanatory. Just as the face of the king is shining like the light of the sun, so the face of the bridegroom is shining like the light of the sun. As it is said in Psalms 19:6, and it is like a bridegroom emerging from his chamber. It rejoices like a mighty man running a course. Okay, so that's our class for today. I hope it helps. I hope you guys are enjoying these teachings. Stick around for next week. We are going to discuss the kindness towards mourners and honoring the dead. Very, very cool stuff coming up over there, because it's not just a topic. Now we're going to take this topic and we're going to start digging in all the Torah and finding where this actually comes about, how it's relevant to us today. So again, I'd really just like to say thank you, Baruch Hashem, that I have the opportunity and ability and capability to teach you all. And thank you all for giving me a reason to do so. So as always, have a wonderful rest of the week and have a Shabbat Shalom. See you next time. Bye-bye.